Hello and welcome to Politics Today. I'm Farooq Patafi. Today we are going to move away from Pakistan, move away from most of South Asia as well, and we are going to talk about something that happened in Saudi Arabia. But why is it important? It is important because it is connected to our region. The Saudi-Irani tiff has been going on for quite some time, but now it seems that it has taken a new shape. We know that there was an attack on Aramco installations in Saudi Arabia, a few cruise missiles and drone attacks, but we don't seem to have any footage that we might have seen. After that, we have seen a flurry of statements coming from the US President, Secretary of State as well, and amazingly, the only silent party so far seems to be Saudi Arabia itself. But is it going to lead to any kind of war? Is there a possibility that there might be confrontation? We are going to try examine that. And then, of course, we have to look at in the perspective of what is happening in the region and what it might mean for Pakistan. Can Pakistan also play a role in mitigating some kind of conflict? We are going to talk about these matters and more. In order to help us understand these issues, we are joined by a very prominent panel, very accomplished panel. With me, next to me is Ambassador Riaz Bukhari Sahab, former ambassador, a career diplomat. Thank you very much, sir, for being part of the program. Next to him is Air Vice Marshal retired Faiz Amir Sahab, who is a defense analyst and also VC of a university, Vice Chancellor of a university. Thank you very much, sir, for being part of the program. Next to him is Dr. Zubair Khori Sahab, a senior analyst, and also used to be one of our own, used to host program in PTV as well. Thank you very much, Khori Sahab, for being part of the program as well. Ambassador Sahab, I have to start with you, and I have to ask you what exactly is the direction where we are headed? Do you see a conflict?
It's a very serious situation which is developing in the region, though the blames are squarely on the Iranian side. The US President's Twitter messages and some statements by the senior US officials, they are blaming Iranians that they are behind these drone attacks, or some reports also suggest that these are missile or cruise missile which were launched. But the big question is, if the Houthis, who have confessed to have launched these attacks, do they have the capability to launch such attacks at their own?
Okay.
Who is behind them? And I think this whole incident requires in-depth investigation.
Right.
Only then one can come up with a clear situation what is going to happen.
In-depth investigation by whom?
Yeah, so far the Saudis are investigating at their own with some help from the outside countries. And I was just reading one statement by senior US officials that they have got some information and they're going to present it to the UNGA next week.
Right. AVM Sahab, your take, sir? What exactly is the direction where we are headed?
Let's look at the motives. There seem to be conflicting motives from either side. First one is if it is Iran, attacked by Iran or Iranian forces, proxy forces, then Iran probably is trying to warn Saudi Arabia and the world at large of the things that could come if Iran is indulged or is attacked by anybody present in the Persian Gulf. The second is probably most probable or equally probable would be the act of persuasion to persuade USA to punish Iran for being the naughty boy in Persian Gulf and threatening the global economy by attacking the almost shutting down 5% of world's global oil production.
Yeah.
So these are the two conflicting motives that you see from either side, and both are plausible.
Right. But the second part that you mentioned is amazing, because on one side, Houthis have actually taken credit for the attack.
Well, when you look at the Houthis' claim and you indulge into technicalities of the attack, the Al Khoraiz the oil fields and the Abqaiq, processing facility or the refinery,
Right, sir.
they're about 1,000 kilometers from Yemen.
Okay.
And if what the Americans claim is that there have been 9 impact points.
Right.
So 19 impact points.
Right, sir.
So 19 impact point means there was a large number of
Weapons that were fired.
Weapons that were fired, or if they were drones, then there were a large number of drones.
Okay.
Now, if you look at the Yemeni pattern of attacks in the previous attacks they did on the Saudi Arabia and the Saudi Arabian airports and the cities, then the Yemeni drones, they had 2 kinds of fuses. One was air fuse, where they would blow up in the air and damage large number of personnels or the vehicles. And the second one was on impact,
Right.
that they would explode on impact. But this particular attack that has been on the oil production facility, oil pipeline, and the oil processing facility, these have been with a different kind of a weapon. And these weapons were deep penetrating, what you call shaped charges. Probably, so they were weapons that could penetrate deep inside and explode and cause fire.
What you're saying is this is not technology used by either Houthis
We-
or Iran.
No, we cannot give the benefit of such a technology to the Houthis, because if you look at 1,000 kilometer, then it is a drone come UAV, unmanned vehicle,
Okay.
because it got to have a fuel to travel 1,000 kilometers,
Yeah.
and then look at the precision of the attack.
And how does it actually appeal to you when it is said that those UAVs might have actually taken off from Iran, not Yemen?
They could have taken off from Iraq, flown by the Israelis, because Israelis are found all over Iraq.
Amazing.
Amazing.
Amazing because today is Netanyahu's election.
Yeah.
And it just happened before it. But we are going to talk about that. So let me bring in the third guest who is waiting patiently for his turn. So your opening assessment.
Yeah, I cannot be as technical as Marshal Saab was, because this is his field and this is what he has been doing throughout his lifetime. But I can have a political...
Not this.
No, he has been handling all these things.
Plenty more also.
Plenty more also.
Okay.
So this is a highly technical debate. I cannot get into that technical debate. But politically speaking, I tend to agree with him that this cannot be done by the Houthis. But this can be done in conjunction with the Houthis.
Okay.
Because the land can be used, the facilities can be used by the Iranians.
Okay.
But for this time, you were saying that in your intro that no pictures have shown, but some of the Google images have been shown by the American administration, that these are the 19 impact points where these attacks have landed.
I didn't say that they haven't shown the wreckage.
Yeah, Google images have come out.
I saw that, and they showed the...
No, they haven't shown the wreckage because this is just this is not a human facility. There could be a huge... it is just a processing facility.
No, they have shown the impact point and where it burnt.
Yeah, you can see the craters there.
Yeah.
So, I'm not going to say that it's kind of a conspiracy theory on the part of the Americans. That may be, because we are living in the world of fake news and the false news, and anything can happen, and conspiracy theories are roaming around.
Let us not add to that.
Yeah. We tend to agree or disagree with certain situations, but there are certain fluid situations. At the moment, the point that you raised it, that the Saudis are silent still now. They are not speaking, they are not uttering a single word on this. They have to come out. Either they want to blame the Iranians, which is apparent that they are going to attack Iran. But the overall situation that is emerging is not easy to be ignored because of the latest development of the Chinese offer, rather agreement to do around $300 billion investment in Iran, a la BRI. So this can be one effort to go in that front. If you want, I can go further in detail. But the point here is...
Actually, I don't want to go that far because I want to understand what is going to happen now.
Yes.
Do you think we are headed
the whole
to
plan,
war? Are we going to head to war? Because there are so many loose elements right now that it could lead to world war.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
not just war.
Yeah.
And on the other side, Donald Trump is there, who clearly seems to be torn between this desire to go punish and then realizing next year is the election. He has to mind the fact
Yes.
that his own base doesn't like wars.
Yes. He appears to be kind of, please pardon my words, kind
Once
of
again.
madness there.
Okay.
But there is
Appears-
always a method in his madness.
Okay.
He's not that mad as he appears.
No, he's not mad at all. He's very smart.
So he may be appearing some kind of making some foolish statements on Twitter and have a very, very bad haircut. But the point I'm trying to make here is that he may be doing something in this whole region. This may not culminate into a whole all-out war, but this can be a pressure tactics on the Iranians, on the Chinese, as the Chinese are trying to extend their wings in the region, as they have already done this exercise with.
I noticed very silently we are back to China.
Yes.
I wanted to know whether there's going to be a war or not.
No,
Not at all.
not in one word, no.
Okay.
This can be a pressure tactics. There can be some
And-
further
and-
surge in the forces in
But
the Arabian
you
Sea.
said something else that he might be silently doing many things. David Sanger has written a beautiful book called Confront and Conceal, in which he shows that Obama has done, of all the presidents, more to damage Iran than anybody else.
Yeah.
Do you think that Donald Trump is doing more than that?
No, I don't think so. Iranians are getting one more buoyance, particularly the Chinese offer or the agreement at this moment. They are, look at the events in the past 4 or 5 years. They have kind of been behind all the curtains against the survival of Bashar al-Assad in Syria. Okay, there was an onslaught from everywhere. There has not been that much success that was expected by the allied forces from the Saudis' offensive into Yemen, and they are feeling buoyant as well.
Right.
There has been pressure from the Trump administration for the last 3-4 years to put them down, but they are still facing this thing. And if China agrees to buy all the gas which is appearing to the no, the Chinese.
I
I'm
know
saying
you
Iran.
want to talk about China, and someday I'm going to talk about China at length.
okay.
Let me come back to Ambassador Saab.
Okay.
Sir, one immediate impact is on economy, right? Economy already was shrinking all over the world. We know there was a slowdown, and then all of a sudden fuel prices have gone up. Do you think that this is just a momentary hump, or we should be preparing for something longer term?
I would tend to agree with your, last part of your,
Long term?
statement. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it would have long-term effect on the, oil price, international oil prices, and it will have, very negative effect on our economy.
Our economy?
Yeah, once, oil prices goes up.
Yeah, but we seem to have some arrangement with Saudi Arab and UAE already.
That is apart. That arrangement is still there and it will continue. But that oil prices internationally, once they increase, prices of everything go up. Your import bill also increase, and your export prices also increase in a way. So, given our current level of
Recovery
GDP,
and all.
that will have we go under a lot of stress.
Now, you have been part of the Foreign Office. This scenario, this situation between Iran and Saudi Arabia has been going on for quite some time. Do you think that there is some kind of contingency planning? That because both countries are brotherly, they are very close to us. If they go to war, what exactly are we going to do?
I would not talk about those countries going to war. I would hate to say anything about that.
Hey,
So
not
far,
talking about something is
Yeah,
one thing.
yeah. But I don't think-
it might be distasteful.
they have very serious differences, and for the last so many years, it's not new. I would say for the last 35, 40 years, they have been contesting each other on many counts, and they have serious differences as well. But the situation has not come to the level that they would go to war.
Okay.
They would tend to, I hope, to use diplomatic means.
I'm merely talking about a possibility. I mean, when we were taught contingency planning, we were told that there has to be some kind of plan for every eventuality.
Always you have a plan. you have a
That is heartening to hear.
Yeah.
AVM Saab, do you think that we are prepared, we know what to do if something bad actually happens?
In Pakistan?
No, between the two countries.
Two countries.
And two countries, one is physically very close and very close to our hearts as well. The other one is already very close.
I'll go back to my previous comment that I was making on the type of attack.
Yeah.
I would like to analyze that attack. I'm surprised why didn't the Houthis attack UAE facilities which are so close to them?
And don't give them ideas.
No. What I'm saying is, if you blame Houthis for that, then why didn't they attack the facilities that were closer to them?
No, but the problem is
So-
they are blaming themselves for it.
No, they might be, but look at the UAE is right 1/3 the distance of the attack on the Al Abqaiq and the Al Khurais. Second, if you look at the map, these two facilities are opposite to Qatar and Bahrain.
Okay.
So when you look at who all could attack,
No, I understand that you think that this
Who all
entire,
could- who all
entire
could-
thing doesn't add up.
No,
but
it-
we have to talk about Pakistan's perspective as well. Two
Pitafi-
very close allies,
Pitafi will have
one neighbor.
will have to understand the attack and its motive to see whether it leads to war or not.
Yeah.
Right? Its motive and who carried out the attack.
You
So,
think it is going to lead to a WhatsApp?
well, it is very close to. It's very close to, because when Trump says that they are loaded and locked.
Locked and loaded. But then he also says that I don't want war.
No,
And then he is also trying to have a dialogue with the Iranian government.
He is a man of lot of contradictions, and he's been doing that.
Or too smart, trying
maybe,
in all
maybe
directions.
Yes, maybe he's going in all directions also.
Yeah.
But I think we were very close to war, but probably if this attack was by the Iranians, then Saudis would understand, and that's why the Saudis have said that the world should condemn wherever the origin of the attack is.
What do
That
you
is-
mean
that
by
is-
they'll understand? You said Saudis will
Yeah,
understand.
they'll understand because it is their entire oil production that is under threat.
So they are going
So-
to retaliate, you mean?
No, I'm saying that if they were eager on war earlier,
Okay.
probably there would be certain check or certain understanding that it is not the American air defense assets are not going to save them that much.
Right.
So there has to be an acceptable attrition that the Saudis will take in case the war goes on, and it isn't going to be a land warfare. It's going to be all air warfare. And in air warfare, you'll also have the missiles coming in. And missiles are proliferating in the entire Middle East.
Now,
So-
thank you very much for highlighting that aspect, because
Yeah.
as much as I'm averse to a dystopian reading of this situation, if that happens, God forbid, if that happens, two countries which are very close to Pakistan, one is physically also, right? If they go to war, one has Khana Kaaba, I mean, two holy shrines, right? And Iran is also very important. What does Pakistan do? Do we have any plans?
No.
Do we have any understanding how to handle these situations?
Plans, probably the parliament is in position. We have a parliament.
But parliament is not an executive body, sir.
No, it's not. It was not when it decided not to go to Yemen. So it was. So the parliament is in position, and probably the government of the time will have to take this issue to the parliament if there's a conflagration. What I'm telling you is that the conflagration is not a land troop movements from Saudi Arabia to Iran or vice versa. It is the American assets and the Israeli assets getting airborne from their own bases and attacking Iran, and Iran in retaliation attacking the Saudi Arabian.
One-time strikes, nothing
Yeah.
else.
So probably retaliation would be there, and then if you recall the Iranian leadership. When Trump pulled out of JCPOA, the Iranian leadership had said that they will not let the oil flow through the Strait of Hormuz to any other country. So there are complications. So if there's and probably Trump is trying to pressurize Iran to make certain concessions, come down to table, make certain concessions just before the campaign starts.
Yeah.
So there are motives of both sides. The
And then Ayatollah-
Trumpian motives are
And then Ayatollah, Grand Ayatollah, actually makes a statement that this maximum pressure tactic is not going to work.
it's not going to work. So I'm saying
So
there
the dialogue
are,
is not happening.
there are different, as we have been talking about, there are different forces in this particular the entire
Yeah.
game, and they have their own motives. The Israelis
Right.
have their own motives. Saudis have their own motives. The Iranians want certain settlement with the Americans, but not humiliating one. The Americans want certain. The Trump effort by Trump is to improve upon the Barack Obama's negotiated deal, so that he can go back to his own people and say that look what I got for you.
I have actually corrected
So
it.
there are different parties have not a similar motive. There are different motives in this.
Right. Dr. Zubair Hori, let us talk about Pakistan's preparedness. It is important. I'm sure that we don't want to talk about all these matters. Do you think it will automatically go to the parliament? And parliament is going to debate? Because war is different, especially when it is happening in your neighborhood. You already have one, place, Afghanistan, next to you, where they are fighting. And then India shows its true colors recently also. It showed it. Now the third country also.
Well, first of all, I stand by my point that there's not going to be war.
Okay.
And if there is one, I'm sure that our armed forces are already prepared for any kind of eventuality.
Right.
Our Air Force, our land forces, and of course maritime and naval forces must be ready for that. It is going to be a political decision that what kind of reaction we want. I'm sure our strategies are very much in place that if there is any eventuality, we are ready to respond to it. So it's the political decision with the sitting government, as AVM Saab said, or if even the sitting government wants to take a debate to the parliament, why not? Let's have 1 or 2 days debate there. But as regards the overall economic condition, the countries like Pakistan, which has a smaller base of economy and which is heavily reliant on the imported oil, yes, it must be affected by this oil prices. But if you look at the international map, 5% of the world facilities, 4 to 5% oil facilities, with the incoming of the shale gases and the capacity of the European Union and particularly the American shale gas, they can increase the supply. Rather, news is coming in, they have already increased their supply line. Yeah. Another element is, although there is a slowdown in the international economic market, but the interests are very low. The European Union have been trying its best to increase the inflation and also the interest rate so that the consumption pattern returns and that impacts further back into the industrial production. And the third point is the relatively stable market. There is no food crisis in the world. There is no oil kind of a crisis in the world. So this will be a passing thing if there is no doubling of effort, doubling of certain things in some areas, some further attacks.
India's stock markets are falling.
India's stock market just today, because India...
yesterday also.
Yeah.
It has been tumbling.
Yeah. So few of the stock markets may fall for some days, but it's not big like a few years ago that the oil touched 140 barrel. This is not going to happen. Okay. This may fluctuate between $7 to $10 per barrel and then find some equilibrium somewhere. And then what we look at Pakistan's economic condition, yes, we have this you call loan facility of oil. We may have it, the deferred payment facility, and then we can rely on that. But in the long run, even if we may be affected severely for some time, because I can expect next month the oil prices are going to go up. Okay. So
okay,
yes,
you're predicting that.
I'm
no,
predicting that. So this is not going to affect us long way.
No, I understand that you actually took on two factors. On one side, you said that when it comes to the kinetic aspect, Pakistan must be ready, right?
We are ready.
And then you spoke about economic aspects as well. There is a third, cultural aspect also. Last time, there was some movement, there was siege of Makkah, if you remember.
70s.
People actually went and burned an embassy in Pakistan. And our people are very emotional, right? So, two places which are very close to Pakistani psyche, both Iran and Saudi Arabia. If, God forbid, they were to go and start a fight, do you think that we have the kind of nuts and bolts in place to take care of everything?
Trust me, this is not going to happen.
Okay.
Mark my words.
So we shouldn't
This is
be
not
talking,
going to handle
so
this
we
much eventuality.
No,
Even
no,
if
but
there is some
then we
crossfire of
shouldn't be
missiles, there will be.
Dr. Saab, then we shouldn't be perhaps talking about it then?
No, I'm just saying that even if there will be a crossfire, that will be pressure tactics. That is still a far cry for me. Okay. Then there will be crossfire of some missile that AVM sir was talking about. There will be no boots on ground and getting into the two of the holiest places for the Muslims. This is not going to happen.
Let us go back to Ambassador Saab. Sir, do you think that when you're talking about diplomacy, Pakistan can play some part? There are at least two dimensions that we can take care of. America and Iran, and then Saudi Arabia and Iran also. We are close to all these parties.
Yeah, you know, as I was mentioning, since long we have been, in a way, playing some role in bringing Iran and Saudi Arabia together, and you know, to see that their differences are minimized to some extent. And I think we should continue with that role in future, if you know, situation further worsens.
When you say we have been doing it for some time,
I mean,
what do you mean?
in the
Recently,
past,
5 years? 10 years?
I mean, recently our Prime Minister went to, you know, after visiting Riyadh, he went to, you know, Tehran as well.
Right.
And when the Crown Prince came over here, and there were talk of, you know, Pakistan playing some sort of role in resolving some differences between the two countries. And we tried to play some role in that.
Right.
During Iran-Iraq war, we also played some role in that situation. There were some crises in the past between Saudi Arabia and Iran. We did play some role, and I think we should continue with that, because that is the best option available to us. Taking side of one country or the other would be, you know,
disastrous.
Yeah.
But do you think both countries are ready to listen to Pakistan right now in this heat of affairs?
You know, once the heat goes further up, it will come down, obviously. As Dr. Zubair was saying, that war is not the option over here. So I will go by that.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
And obviously, we are the best. We are closer to both the
Do you think
parties.
there is a possibility that even now, on the sidelines of UNGA,
Yeah.
Donald Trump is going to meet President Rouhani?
I mean, so far, you know, Iranian side has toned down such, you know, news and rumors about meeting between the two. But anything can happen at UNGA sidelines.
Should it?
It should. Why not?
Right.
Both sides should talk to each other.
And who is going to convince the Grand Ayatollah?
I mean, it is the national interest.
Okay.
They have to see
Right.
what is the best for the country and for the region.
Right.
They have to go by that.
And especially when you talk about rulers, they might be rich. But when you talk about the common people, they are suffering really in Iran.
Yeah, you are right.
Because of the inflation, because of the tumbling.
Once you are rich, you are more concerned to secure your, you know, assets.
Right. People are assets, right?
I mean, people, and your own assets, as you were mentioning.
Okay. Okay. Sir, your take, sir.
Well, talking of Pakistan's options, I think Pakistan would have two options if there's a conflict in the Persian Gulf. One is to side with Saudi Arabia, and second is to stay neutral.
Okay.
These will be the two options that Pakistan will have.
No other option?
Staying neutral would be siding with Iran also.
Okay.
So I would say they will either side with Saudi Arabia or stay neutral.
So they are going, anybody,
No.
US or Saudi Arabia or UAE, they are going to say you're either with us or against us.
Yes. So let's take up these options. Whichever option Pakistan takes, or the Pakistan leadership takes, there are going to be consequences. Consequences from economic to probably military side. Now, economic that you have been, we very recently we were relying on our friends for their support to our economy. So that could be in danger. That could be one of the pressures that you may have to side with the Saudi Arabia. Now, if you side with the Saudi Arabia, there are people in Pakistan, there are people who feel closer to Iran, and those who feel for Iran, or those who feel for the neighbors, that we should be siding with our neighbors. So there are going to be political consequences. Either if we stay neutral, then there are people who would say probably we should have gone with the Saudis. So there will be consequences.
Or Americans for that
consequences. So to withstand both kinds of pressures, either this or that, probably the government will have to go to the parliament to develop a political consensus. And unless there's a political consensus, I think government will find very difficult to go either way. Now, when we come to kinetic side, that if Pakistan takes a side, would Pakistan be participating in any of these options that I just narrated? I don't think so. I think Pakistan has a very precarious situation on its eastern border as well as on the western border. So Pakistan will not like to be disturbed or taken away from the situation, the two front war that it faces at the moment, and probably the inside as well.
Right.
So probably I would think that Pakistan would, if it takes a side, it will take it diplomatically, it will support, it will give us.
Thank you very much for highlighting that,
morally.
because that actually builds on my next question. What role Pakistan can play in playing diplomacy and bringing the two countries closer?
But you play a role in diplomacy when both parties are ready to listen to you. And Pakistan, Pakistan at the moment probably has been communicating more easily with Saudi Arabia and with, to some extent, with UAE. So the channels are very open. The Prime Minister keeps talking to the Crown Prince on telephone. He has been probably regularly talking to him. So I think the communication on that side is okay. Now, if KSA, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, wants, then probably Pakistan will be in a position to represent or to take a proposal to the Iranians. So unless there is a willingness on the other side or on the USA side, I don't think Pakistan will have much role except to try and persuade both sides not to indulge in any kind of armed conflict.
Talking to crown princes, the problem is Iran doesn't have a crown prince. So our prime minister maybe cannot talk.
Does that make any difference? Because
but Jawad Zarif has been coming here.
No, does that make any difference? The Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia is ruling Saudi Arabia, so he is the de facto ruler of that country. So if your Prime Minister has been talking to him, then Prime Minister is talking to the person in charge.
And who is de facto ruler of Iran, sir?
De facto ruler of Iran probably is the supreme leader, Khamenei, and he has his reservations even on his president. So I think eventually you will have to approach the supreme leader of Iran to start any kind of rapprochement if it's possible.
Right. Your take, sir? What can Pakistan do to actually act as a bridge?
Well, I tend to agree with AVM Saab on this point of view, that you only go for the kind of rapprochement between the two countries if both of them ask you. If none asks you, then you may not be getting into the affairs as much deeper as they are maybe expecting you to. But you have to look at the overall jigsaw puzzle, or the chess that is in front of us. This is basically the struggle that is going on between the US on the one hand and the emerging Chinese threat to them. The latest things that are coming from the US establishments and US think tanks, now this is the time for the overall total or some response to China. Why I keep referring to, because Iran is a one player to this latest deal. Let me complete my argument this time.
But my complaint, with due respect, my complaint is not that you keep bringing up China, but you're missing one big factor, which is Russia.
No,
and the US keeps on complaining about them as well.
I'll bring Russians as well. When this deal was taken up between China and Iran, many of the Western commentators were saying that this is the something in the face. This is our response from the Chinese side. So since Iranians are involved, this can be a huge pressure tactic on the Chinese to bring that kind of an equilibrium back into the market. This can also be supportive to, or can be a response to China, which is getting so close to Iran. And yes, Russian market is very much in. You may know that in the future, some of the meetings of SCO, Iran can be a part of that. So the things are changing. Chinese are flexing their economic muscles, not their military muscles, everywhere in the region, and they want to have that strategic position here. Americans are seriously disturbed. Their only key player in this region is India, and they are trying to support them as much as possible and to pressurize them. You see, the setback the Indians are going to face with the exclusion of India from the Chabahar, because Indians had pledged X amount for the development of the Chabahar port. The money did not come, and the Iranians were getting seriously disillusioned, as well as the Afghanis. But now the Chinese are coming in and they are going to give $320 billion in different types of infrastructure developments. And of course, their increasing role in Afghanistan, Indians are equally perturbed. This is a good news for us in some way. That if the Indians are disturbed, they say that enemy of your enemy is your friend. So for me, these are all pressure tactics to get Iran on the mat once again.
They might be. But again, going back to the question, the current fault line seems to be between two countries, right? On the surface.
Apparently. But
no,
there are
on the
many
surface
other
it is.
players.
I mean, but direct, you know, Saudi Arabia, which has been attacked, Iran, which has been blamed, right? They're two direct parties, right?
Why are you forgetting Yemen? The Houthis are also the parties. They have taken this responsibility.
But Yemen is badly broken, right?
Yeah, it is broken. But they are the parties.
My humble submission or question is, if the two parties are there, and you feel, I'm sure AVMs have already pointed out, maybe we don't have that kind of direct contact with the Iranian side, but we are very close to both the countries, and we have been working with both. Is there a possibility of working as a bridge, or not at all?
No, we can work. Of course, we can work. If there is an eventuality, we should rather. If you could see 1 year ago when there was a plan to attack Yemen, Pakistan tried to do that. Although Pakistan was asked to become the part of that coalition force, but Pakistan, due to its own limitations, did not allow them.
The then Prime Minister,
Yes.
first went to Saudi Arabia along with the army
Yeah,
chief, and then went to Tehran also.
Yeah, Tehran also. So Pakistan should be there, but we must admit that we are sitting on the state TV. We must admit that over the past few years or few decades, if we take the relations vis-a-vis Iran and Saudi Arabia, we have a slight tilt towards Saudi Arabia because of course, our economic reasons, because of certain issues that we have had with Iran.
Hang on, you're saying this because you're sitting on the state channel, because you mentioned, or in spite of the fact
In spite of the fact that I'm sitting.
Okay, I just wanted to that to be
In
clear.
spite of the fact that I'm sitting on the state TV, this is a history. Even when Prime Minister Imran Khan visited Iran, he also pointed out some of the issues between Pakistan and Iran, the border skirmishes there have been some attacks on some of the parties. There hasn't been some issues between Pakistan and Saudi Arabia. And as far as the economic front is concerned, whenever there was an economic problem in Pakistan, Saudi Arabia was always standing beside us.
No, but you are actually trying to give me a maze or present me a maze. Right?
This is a maze, yes.
No, with due respect, on one side, the reason why there would be any estrangement between Iran and Pakistan would be India. No, hang on. That would be India, right? And now you're telling me that it is China which is moving closer to Iran, not India, and China is very close to Pakistan.
Yes.
So that means that then we have some kind of leverage with the Iranian side as well.
No, through China.
I'm just adding
This
your
is
two
a-
and two
this
and
is a-
telling you it is four.
No, this is through China. But as far as Saudis are concerned, we have direct relations with them. This can be a via route. But why I'm saying it's a good news, because it's a setback for Indians, because of their involvement in Chabahar, because of their involvement in Afghanistan, because of their closeness with Iran. The things are that Iranians and Pakistani relationship are going to improve, of course, with the economic linkages through the Chinese intervention.
All right. You agree with that, Ambassador?
I mean, I would say, we have also directly, contact with
we are sitting next to each other.
Next door neighbor. We
Across Goldsmith Line.
Historical, cultural relations. We know each other since centuries, and I mean, no doubt, as he mentioned, we have some differences which the Prime Minister mentioned during his visit to Tehran, and we are trying to resolve those issues as well between Iran and Pakistan. But coming back to that, Iran and Saudi Arabia recent tension, as I said earlier, it will affect us seriously in economic terms, because as you know, we have huge number of Pakistani working in Saudi Arabia. In case of any war-like situation in that country, we should be prepared, and this is what, we were talking about contingency plans. To see how best we can look after them once they return back to Pakistan, because they are not going to stay over there as it happened in Kuwait. So I would say our leadership, should continue as the Prime Minister is going to visit, Riyadh soon. So this issue will be on the agenda in addition to Kashmir.
Right. There's a reason why I keep going back to contingency plans and all. Whenever we are talking about something that is going to happen in future, I remember 4, 5, 6 months before Indian elections, when we were talking about the possibility that when Modi is going to get elected again, he is going to do away with 370 and 35A, right? It was out and open. Then things happen. And after that, we have seen that Prime Minister is really exerting himself, the army chief, the entire state. But those contingency plans that we talked about never make it to the media. So it seems the image that is given is somehow we have dearth of options by the media and the pundits. So I want to understand if we are working on actual plans as well, if something goes awry. AVM Sahab, your take, sir.
How would anybody sitting here would know that the actual plans are being
You are a
worked
think
upon?
tanker. You are a think
I would
tanker.
just add
But let me-
one.
Okay,
excuse me,
please.
one,
That is a tell sign. That is a tell. When you are saying that I don't know anything, that means you are in the know.
Options are always there. Contingency plans are always there in the ministry. As you mentioned about Prime Minister Modi's election and BJP's manifesto.
Yeah.
All things were discussed, are there. It is only up to the leadership which option they tend to proceed further.
Right.
Similarly, in case of Iran, Saudi Arabia, recent tension, I believe some contingency.
Ambassador Sahab, I understand that the government has its own
Yeah.
working machinery, right? I'm not complaining about that. My problem is with the brain trust that might exist among the civil society. I don't see the civil society giving the kind of inputs. I keep on going through the works of or the speeches of the think tanks or the pundits, and they are more or less the same.
Yeah.
And it only gives me depression. I mean, I don't know about you. We don't have any options. We just have to sit silent. We can't do anything.
No.
And then there has to be some measure of proactivity. AVM Sahab, coming back.
Well, if you talk of contingency plans, and probably there are two major things that the government will have to look at. First is the oil supplies or oil storage, which the country does not have a very large quantity of oil storage. So probably if the oil supplies are disturbed for anything more than 15, 20 days, we could have problems. So that is one area the government should be looking at the moment. The second area should be that the large number of Pakistanis present in UAE and Saudi Arabia, probably they would be under physical threat. Now, what my experience is that when Kuwait was attacked back in 90s, many nationalities chose to leave Kuwait, but the Pakistanis stayed back.
Right.
They wanted to show their solidarity with the Kuwaitis and the brothers over there. So a very large majority of them, they chose to stay back in Kuwait.
Right.
I would think it would be a similar situation in Saudi Arabia also, and mostly in UAE also, that probably during this, if there is a breakout of armed conflict, then probably, though government would be worried, particularly about the women and children and the elderly people in both the countries, but I think the workforce by and large will choose to stay over there. Now there was a mention about China, and I would like to just put in my word on it.
Please do, but
I think,
remember that we are left with 2-3 minutes.
Yeah, that you came to me very late.
I kept on coming to you, sir.
So China, I think the Chinese current promise is just a promise. And probably by the time it materializes to take a shape, it will take a year or two. Right. And by that time, the conflagration in Iran probably would be through. So I don't think at this moment, the Chinese promises of investment in Iran are going to...
different from investment itself, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, but
actually,
there are other countries.
I
Japan is
didn't
trying...
come late to you, sir. You came to this subject late. But here's another aspect, and I have to ask you, before we actually try to conclude the program. Earlier, there was consensus that there has to be investigation, right? Impartial investigation to actually see who is responsible, because it is an act of aggression in any case, right? Somebody attacks you and your economic supply line, that creates a problem. Who that reliable party might be that could conduct such an investigation?
None.
None. That's a very difficult
None.
question to ask.
Because if the Americans could manipulate the UN General Assembly and Colin Powell could show fake pictures over there of WMD sites, I think there is no one
No, but
particularly.
they tried, but they failed to manipulate it.
No, they did, and they did go to war.
no,
they
but-
did attack, they did invade Iraq.
UNSC it didn't vote,
So
they had to create their
I
coalition
think-
of the willing.
No, there is another aspect to it, that the weapons used could have been used by anybody, but with equipment numbers carrying Iranian
Right.
numbers.
I got the response from both of you actually. He also said
There was-
none.
there was
but
a-
I have to ask
There's
Ambassador.
a beautiful book by David Miller, Tell Me Lies, on this.
Okay.
I mean,
When he has
There has to
opened
be
up
somebody.
all the avenues in the British Parliament, that why did they choose to lie?
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, there has to be somebody to investigate. Someone has to be assigned this responsibility, and we have only the UN, which is available.
Right. On that rather concerning note, I have to conclude the program. Ambassador retired Riaz Bukhari sir, thank you very much for your time. Vice Marshal retired Faiz Amir sahab, thank you very much sir for your time as well. Dr. Zubair Hori, I have said retired twice, I'm not going to say it third time. Dr. Zubair Hori, thank you very much for your time as well. Viewers, you have listened to our participants. This discussion has to go on. Of course, one concern, and that has to be a concern of everybody on the face of this planet, is that we have seen two world wars in the past, and anything in this current mix can lead to that kind of situation. But back then, only one country had the kind of lethal weapons. Now more or less many countries have. Let us hope we don't go there. There's no crime in hoping that the world remains peaceful. And then, of course, we have to look at Pakistan's preparedness in any eventuality as well. Let us hope in coming days we see both there's peace and Pakistan is prepared for everything as well. This was today's program. Thank you very much for watching us. Take care.